And let's see, I will be monitoring the chat for questions, so please do throw them in there. And we'll be available to help you if you have any technical questions. We ask that everyone in the session adhere to the OESS Code of Conduct. I'm placing a link there, but I don't have the link. I will put that in there as soon as I get a chance. I'm sorry. Let's see, the Open Education Summit Symposium strives to offer an open, inclusive, and friendly environment for all participants. All attendees are expected to help maintain a professional and welcoming environment free of any type of harassment. Together, we can create a space where individuals feel free, excuse me, to express themselves, work together, and come up with solutions to today's unique challenges. The organizers of OESS appreciate your help in making this symposium a friendly and welcoming virtual environment. Please note that all of our sessions are recorded. So I'll hand off to Ashley and company.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you, Cindy, for the introduction, and welcome everyone on the screen and whoever might be watching this in the future. We're gonna talk to you today about our OER program and specifically what some initiatives we've done concerning diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, where DEI and OER intersect here. And so my name is Philip Smith. I'm actually a librarian by training, but not currently working as a librarian. I'm the assistant director for our Center for Teaching Excellence. And so we have a truly cross-disciplinary team here because Ashley is a librarian, and then Moyne is an engineer and has done a lot of great work with OERs and helping us with grants. So we've been a little core team here at ETSU, East Tennessee State University, working on OERs in a lot of ways. So I think we'll go to check out the agenda here. So I'll tell you just a little bit about the program that we've developed over the past couple of years and how we've been assessing that, and a little bit of what we've learned so far. And then we'll talk about, yeah, how we've kind of got to this phase where we're wanting to do more with DEI, and we were able to get a grant for that to work on that. So that we'll talk a lot about that and some of the assessment results of that. And of course, just try to bring it home and share with y'all some of the things that we've learned that hopefully can be applicable or shed some light on the great efforts everyone's doing at your institutions. So yeah, we started this about 2018, and we have a program similar to probably a lot of you are familiar with this kind of thing, but where we do, we offer stipends to faculty to basically, switch out that costly publishing textbook with OERs or affordable materials. So we have, OERs proper, and then we have what we call affordable, is our way to kind of broaden that umbrella and also talk about, using library resources, freely available resources that may not necessarily have that Creative Commons licensing, but we still, thinking in terms of just saving the students money, that thing. And then our program also includes support from experts like Ashley and myself. We run like faculty learning communities, FLCs. So we basically, we put out a call for these awards, and faculty apply. We see what their projects are, and we, just go in and try to help them find resources, coach them through the licensing. That's all Ashley's stuff. We talk to them about how it's going to, other good changes they can make to their classes. And yeah, we could show off some of the work that's come out of this project. Ashley, her main role as a librarian there is putting together the digital commons, so we can share that with you. And of course, we've done lots of assessment, lots of surveys. So we've got a lot of data that we can share with you and see how that trends with other stuff going on. Next slide. Yeah. So some of you may be familiar with this assessment model. It's the COO model that the Open Education Group uses. So we very much just adapted this from Bliss and all. And it's just kind of a standard, logical way to assess your OER program. So costs, so both in terms of just what you've what students have saved, but also like what you invest. So like we invest, the institution is investing money in terms of, you know, giving stipends to faculty and devoting staff time to supporting this. Outcomes is a big one, right? So looking at how does using OER affect grades and some of these other course indicators, but of course, as you'll see, COVID, and we can't really do a lot with that, but we still did look at that. And of course, usage, so how many times, how often are students using it, and what are maybe some problems with that. And what we'll really hopefully be able to spend a good chunk of this presentation is looking at the perception. So how do faculty feel about it? How do students feel about it? And Ashley and I we wrote up a lot of this, of our kind of pilot program of this. So if you want to see more about that, we'll pop this into the chat, and you'll be able to see that if you want to get all of the nitty-gritty details. What's next? Thank you.
All right.
Yes, Moeen goes.
My name is Mohammed Moinuddin. I'm a professor in the Department of Engineering, Technology and Surveying at East Tennessee State University. So as Phil mentioned, that our OER program is funded through the student library fees. Even though right now we have a OER support structure developed, the potential impact of the program was somewhat limited due to lack of incentive to the faculty. However, in the spring of 2021, we had been awarded a $100,000 grant from Tennessee Board of Regents, which provide much needed boost to our OER program. As you understand, that generous financial support often motivates faculty to justify time and effort needed to adopt OER. This grant specifically targeted digital education initiative and creation of educational support materials that are low or no cost to undergraduate and graduate student, specifically from undergraduate student population, including student of color, low income student, adult veterans, individual with disability, and traditionally underrepresented gender. And the purpose of this grant was to reduce the cost of textbook by identifying no cost or low cost textbook and other educational support materials, closing the digital divide in the state of Tennessee via increased access to technology, and developing course materials and educational content that are culturally responsive, inclusive, focused on equity, social justice, that will produce pedagogical transformation. Through our institutional research, we have learned that the adoption of Janet course will provide biggest bang for our bucks because of the higher enrollment of underrepresented student in Janet class. So our focus was Janet classes. We developed a program based on this grant, and we piloted this program twice, once in fall 2021 and another time, second time in spring 2022. So the program consists of 5 different steps. So step 1 was an informational workshop where we introduced the OER to the faculty, talk about our OER infrastructure, and also we asked students to review some OER materials in their discipline, and faculty who completed those, they received an stipend. Then we did an OER camp. Since, as I mentioned, then fall and spring, we did a summer camp and we did a winter camp. This is a month-long camp. Faculty met once a week, and we discuss different topics, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We talked about accessibility, copyright. These were some of the topics that faculty needed more help. Our goal was for the campus, the end of the camp, the faculty will have the syllabus ready to implement in the upcoming semester. So in the fall 2021 was the implementation semester. Faculty implemented their OER classes. During the implementation semester, we had faculty learning communities, so where faculty met once a month discussing about their OER experience and exchanging what worked, what didn't work. And at the end of the semester, we did the faculty and students survey. As Phil mentioned, we adopted our faculty and students survey based on the BLIS ETL. And the DEI, we also included a DEI question, and those were adapted from Open Oregon educational resources. We also collected the data based on race, so that we can divide it and see how those OER implementation impacted a student of different race. Next slide, please. So 21 instructors implemented OER in 14 courses from 9 different departments, 3 different colleges. So we get a lot of exposure through this grant. Here you see the list of classes that were implemented OER: chemistry, English, communication, economics, history, theater, dance. So a lot of spread, as you can see, through those 2 implementation semester. So anytime when you implement OER, you want to see 2 big aspects: the saving, cost saving, and the outcome. So here the data about the cost saving. Some 1,400 students impacted by our OER, this specific OER program through TBR grant. Students saved $180,000 in the first semester of implementation. Of these 1,465 students, 23% were underrepresented. Those students saved $40,000. So big saving, and as faculty implement these classes in future, so this saving would be manifold. Next slide, please. So when we are analyzing data, there's some important findings we got through the student and faculty survey. This is first one. We have learned that our representative student they purchase required textbook less often that white peer. When we asked why, they said cost prevented them from buying a textbook more often than the white students. And we also learned that our underrepresented students are more likely to receive loan and grants and participate in work study than white student. Compared to that, they also are less likely to receive scholarship money that could be used to buy textbook. So here you see a structural barrier. Next slide, please. So in terms of outcome, due to COVID, we couldn't compare grades and DWF rates, but based on discussion with the faculty, we don't expect that the grades and DW rates was significantly affected by the COVID pandemic. Next slide. So other than cost and outcome, we also look at usage, how often students use the OER materials. We broke it down by race and ethnicity, diversity, how diversity is reflected in the OER materials, diversity, equity, and inclusion, ease of use of the OER material, accessibility, and the availability of internet, because that is an important to access OER materials. So our student response rate was 50%, 731 students submit the survey for the faculty. We get 100% response rate. I'm now handed over to my colleague Ashley, who's going to present the deep down in the data and present the faculty and student data.
Yes, I get what I consider the fun part of the presentation, which is data, because I love that. And so I got a lot of tables and graphs to show you, primarily from our survey data. So this right here shows the breakdown of the race and ethnicity in comparison to the university to our survey data. So you see it's pretty comparable. We try to get the race and ethnicity of our courses, but we're still lagging on that data. But you can see that we have primarily white students at our university. And one thing that we noticed with the survey is it indicated that underrepresented students were more likely to be in our learning support sections and be the first generation college students than our white students. And our learning support sections are those sections where the students usually need a little more help, and those are common in the gen ed courses. And so in our survey, we were able to see survey data from those learning support sections integrated into the other sections of gen ed. So the first thing we looked at is usage, and I'll be showing, these are the highlights from our survey regarding DEI. So in terms of usage, we did see a bit of a difference between our underrepresented students and our white students. So you see here that the underrepresented students, their numbers are larger in the never of how often do you use the required textbooks. So this is their habits of each semester, how often do you use them? So underrepresented students were more likely to say never. And if we went to the specific course, so the course that use those open and affordable materials, the gaps kind of close, but really what we see is the 2 to 3 times a week grew. So the trend overall is that all students used the materials more, but there was still somewhat of a discrepancy between our underrepresented and white students. The next is questions on diversity. So we were really trying to get at diversity in terms of the content of the materials. And we asked these questions of both the students and the faculty. So this question asked, topics around diversity are integrated throughout course materials rather than being a minor addition. And they had to say if they agreed, disagreed, or if they were unsure. As you can see, agree is where the majority lies. But the students had a lot more, and they were a lot more uncertain about this topic than the faculty were. And this was a trend through every single question of diversity. So you're going to see basically this graph over and over with each one I show. So this one, we just asked the students, and it was the materials in this course represented my culture in an affirming, positive way. As you can see, majority said agree, some disagree, lots of unsure. And then lastly, the materials in this course represented diverse identities. And once again, some disagree, more agree. And then the students, a lot more were unsure than the faculty. So we dug down and tried to figure out why was this the case. The comments from the students didn't really help in terms of agree and disagree. Their comments pretty much repeated the question. So I agree because they showed diverse identities. But when we looked at the comments for unsure, it did give us some insight. And a lot of the unsure comments were from courses like chemistry. And it was students just saying, it's chemistry. What does diversity have to do with chemistry? And so when we compared the disciplines of the students, their answers, you can tell where they were coming from. So this compares communication, which was very much a DEI course. They incorporated diversity, equity, inclusion, and a lot of the topics, versus chemistry, which, you know, is just more STEM-based and didn't outwardly talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you can see that the chemistry, a lot were more unsure, and with the communication, a lot more were agreeing. And we did compare this with the underrepresented students and the white students, and there wasn't any difference in their answers. It was really based on the course. We did ask the faculty, though, about what was the most helpful when we did our workshops on DEI, accessibility, and copyright. More said copyright. They're pretty much even, but DEI was at the lower end of the spectrum, so that indicates maybe we need to think about how we can boost this for it to be more useful for our faculty. Accessibility, only one instructor reported not finding the course materials that met their accessibility standards. 5% of students reported encountering accessibility issues, but when we looked into the data, most of that was technology and internet issues, not what we were considering accessibility, which would be like a read to text option, captions, that sort of thing, which you can see here a few of those reported. The next thing we looked at was ease of use. How easy was it for students to use these materials? 88% said that it was easy. And the ones that reported difficulty, it was not so much the OER or the affordable materials that were causing the issue, it was getting to them. So, you know, oh my gosh, I have to go through D2L and I have to click here, and then I got to click here, and then I get to it. So that was what was causing those issues. And we did note that underrepresented students were having more difficulty using the OERs than the white students. Next is internet. We didn't have a lot of students report having internet issues, as you see 98% said that they had it at their primary residence. But with that accessibility question, we had students note internet as an issue. And so this may be a little higher than what's being reported. And then lastly, it's about sustainability. So how likely are you to register for a future course? And we thought, okay, well, the underrepresented students, those in learning support, would like these better because they were free and accessible to all. But actually, they were less likely to want to register for future courses with zero or low cost materials. And I'm going to shoot it off to Phil for some conclusions.
Yeah, here's some of the main take homes that we have up on the slide. I do want to make sure does anyone have questions or comments or want further clarification on anything we've covered so far? I know we don't have a ton of time here. Yeah, so I think one of the main things to really bring home, discussions on DEI need to be customized based on the discipline of the course instructor. Accessibility and internet issues were not a major roadblock, like Ashley was just saying. So I would say if you look at a few of those slides where we were comparing kind of what the usual course material behavior, say, of the underrepresented students, you'll note that they were less likely to get the textbook, which kind of tracks with what we know. If you're lower income, have less disposable income and time and so forth, you're going to be less likely to get the text. But it was neat to see that when the text was free and easily available, they were just as likely, if not more likely, to use them as any other student. And kind of more anecdotally, I think one of the kind of things to look out for with this model, especially with the learning support sections we were talking about, which tended to have a lot more of the underrepresented students, that so we work with, you know, the communication and English composition classes, and their model was really, it's not like one textbook, it's not like plugging in an OpenStax, it's more like, oh, go read this article on the Atlantic, go read this article here on this website, check out this TED Talk. So, you know, it's a lot of linking students out. And so the content can be very good, but however, I think you have to balance that with structure, with being careful about formatting and things, because, you know, some students even have kind of attentional cognitive ability issues with, you know, going to a website and there's pop-up ads and there's flashing other things, and like it gets distracting to the content of the course. So I think, you know, balancing that accessibility in the broader sense, not just ADA compliant accessibility, but, you know, ease of access for students to get to the materials is definitely something to counterbalance with cost, right? But yeah, I'd love to hear any thoughts or questions folks might have.
I don't have a question, but I will say it's fascinating, and thank you for your article. It will most certainly help me in the future.
Good.